Say, hey, happy Wednesday, everybody. This is the Whiskey Lifestyle. I'm Rashawn Hall, aka Bar Time Stories, and we are celebrating Women's History Month this month and doing some great stuff with the good folks at Brown Forman, starting off with this great interview with Jackie Zykan, who is Master Taster at Old Forester. How are you, Jackie?
I'm great. How are you?
Good, good. So I guess first things first, tell us what a Master Taster is.
It's an
probably the question
interesting
you get the
role.
most.
So everybody has their own definition of it, but at Brown Forman, it's a role that kind of sits in this weird hybrid zone between marketing and production. So you're there for these conversations about new product development, and you're also there for, who's going to write the copy that goes on the front label of this bottle once we release this. And you're also there managing actual liquid inventory, and then you're doing things like this, and then it's all over the place. It's really all over the place. But basically there to ensure that the quality and consistency of this brand are always upheld in any way, shape, or form. So
and it's awesome that you get to see it, as you said, from production to, in the bars, folks drinking it. What is that? What was that like that first time you were at a bar, having just been a master taster, maybe a bottle that you worked with was on the shelf? What did that feel like?
It's kind of surreal in a way, because I spent so many years behind the bar and so many years getting to know all these other products out there in the world. And you don't see the giant team of people behind each bottle that made it happen. So it gives you a completely different level of appreciation for everything out there, not just whiskey. But I don't know. There's a big team of us that make everything come to life. And so I don't ever necessarily see one bottle and think like, I did that. It's like I was part of that, but I don't ever take it as my own, I guess. We have an amazing team. We really do. And it does take a village. It's a very complicated process. It's interesting because we get a lot of people like, why don't you just make more whiskey? Or like, why don't you just do this? Or why don't you just do that? And you're like, no, really, you don't understand. It's years and years and years and years of work in the making to get one thing out there. And it's complicated, but I don't know. I'm just glad to be with a brand that is such a high quality product in the first place. Right. So I'm fortunate for that.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, to your early point, that I love about going to distilleries. If you see that process, you see how much work and how many folks and how much love is put into all of that. I've had the privilege of being at the Old Forester distillery downtown and seeing that process. Tell folks a little bit about the Old Forester brand and what that's like. What Old Forester represents.
Yeah, so it's the founding brand of Brown Forman. So Brown Forman is the overarching company that owns things like Jack Daniels or Woodford Reserve or Finlandia or Herradura and all of those fun things. Chambord, that's also ours. So it all started with this one brand, with one gentleman who saw the need to do things a little bit differently in an industry that wasn't really being regulated. He took it upon himself to start encouraging us to think that way. So George Garvin Brown is the Brown of Brown Forman. And so Old Forester, even though it's not the biggest brand out there, and there's a lot of people that are new to the brand now, it's been around since 1870 and has never gone off the shelf ever since, even during Prohibition. So there's so much history with it. But the one thing I can attest to is that even though the brand started over 150 years ago, it started with this principle of how can we start to make sure no one tampers with whiskey just for the sake of making extra money off of fluid volume, basically, is what it all came down to. And we very much hold true to that today. We don't overinflate just because whiskey is a trend, and we don't do false scarcity just because, there's all these tactics out there, right. And we just do our best to make the best whiskey we can. And so that's Old Forester. It's pretty simple. That's all you have to do is worry about making something as well as you can.
You make it sound simple, but I've seen it. It's a very complex process, and you guys do a great job. And in the, not only the quality, but the consistency, I think is something, and as a master taster, I'm sure that's something that you very much play a role in. So tell us, how did you become a master taster? Tell us a little bit about you personally and what got you to this point.
Yeah, it's interesting. I didn't grow up. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri originally. I definitely did not grow up being like, one day I'm going to be working in whiskey. Like, no, that's not an option. Like, no. So I originally went to school studying biology and chemistry for a medical path. And I did some work in the hospital during undergrad, and just the passion I had for it wasn't in patient care. It was more so understanding the processes of the body. And I just didn't think that medicine was the right application for where my passion lied within that. So I switched it up. I applied to a post-grad program to do pathology instead, because that way I was just focused on samples and not live humans. I don't know. It was different. Right. But I got married and he immediately got a job in Louisville, and neither of us had ever been to Louisville. So it was like, you got 48 hours and you're going to be there and he's going to start work and here you go. So I ended up in Kentucky. I had never been here before. I didn't know anybody here, but I bartended my way all through college. And so I found that the easiest way to get to know people and to get to know the city was to get back into the bar world and just pick up a part-time bartending job and, just do it that way. And then I see all these bottles and I'm like, oh, we didn't have that back home. What is all this stuff? And it just sort of triggered something in me to just, start learning everything I possibly could about all of them. And it was that, the culture here, the people, the way all of the brands support each other and aren't overly competitive with each other. There's this very interesting underpinning of hospitality with everything down here. So I fell in love with it. And I would pick up extra side gigs. I was working about 92 hours a week as a beverage director for this restaurant group ultimately, and was still picking up stuff on the side to work with the different brands if they needed someone to work an event or, come up with a recipe for some whatever random thing. And I just grew a name for myself as someone that would show up on time, show up early in most cases, and do a good job. And when Old Forester grew to the point where they needed someone public facing to go out there and, share it with the world, it was bartenders that were growing the brand. So we noticed, we know whether it's a bar or a liquor store, if that's growing the brand based on the sizes that sell. That's a little thing that we do on this side of things. So if it's liter sizes, it's more driven in the bar industry, and it's 750s. It's more the retail stores. So bartenders are driving Old Forester and they're making it popular again. And everyone's like, well, none of us have ever been a bartender. We don't know how to speak to you, talk to bartenders. What do we do with our hands? And so they needed someone that could understand that side of the industry, but also the science behind it. And there I was. And here I am talking to fine folks like you.
Great. And it's interesting that you're not the first person I met that has had this science background. How did that, not to get too technical, but how did that play a role, as you mentioned, kind of just understanding? Obviously, you went from working with one kind of sample to a different kind of sample, but how did that play a role? What do you think that kind of experience gave you?
Well, distillation is nothing more than just a lab table practice. Like it's simple. It's incredibly simple. But when it starts coming down to understanding the different nuances that go into the ultimate flavor profile, the balance of pH and different factors that can kind of lead to defects and things of that sort. There's so many different ways that the process can go wrong that when you are able to get it right, it's actually very impressive to get it right over and over again. But that science understanding, I think it's an undercurrent that allows me to be able to understand the whole process from behind the scenes and then translate it into terms that the consumer can digest in a way that doesn't seem like we're being overly nerdy about it. Doesn't seem like we're being, I don't know. Old Forester is a very approachable brand. We don't like to be snotty about anything. I think there's always that person in the back of a whiskey tasting, right? That's like, actually, I'm getting diacetyl. And you're like, don't be that person.
Right,
like, why?
Right, absolutely.
What? Why? Like, none of us like that. So while I still have in the back of my mind, I think of things almost in two different languages all the time, right? I think of things in technical terms, but then I'm always having to share them in layman's terms. It's interesting, but it helps you to understand innovation. It helps you to think about how can we improve processes. It helps you to think about everything, even cocktails that comes down to a chemical constitution. So yeah, it's always there.
Okay. And I think the other interesting part, obviously, is that this is Women's History Month. So we're talking about, you're a woman. What is that? What is it like to be a woman in whiskey? What does that mean? What's your experience been like? So tell me a little bit about that.
I don't know what it's like to not. So it's kind of hard to say this is what it is to be. Right. But I know it must be different because I get asked about it a lot. There's been situations where, you have to work twice as hard. It's not that you have to know everything about the product that you're sharing with somebody. It's that you have to know all of that and be able to prove yourself by answering every single question anyone has to ask with the right answer. There's that pressure. I'm not a person that will just like give an answer just to make it seem like I have an answer. I have no problem saying, I don't know, but I'll get back with you on that and follow up with you on that. Or like, let's figure it out together. Like, we're all human. But I think that there is this automatic, like, prove that you're supposed to be here because you haven't been here before and we're not used to you being there. And it's interesting. But I think from this, it's been almost 7 years now that I've been with Old Forester. So from the beginning up until now, there's been a massive shift in brands really highlighting the females that are part of producing their products. And I think that's great. I also think that it's important for us to really sit back and realize, like, a lot of us aren't just here to like prove a point. Like, we're doing what we love to do and we're doing what we're good at. And sometimes it seems like our gender comes first and our talents come second. You know what I mean? It's interesting that way, but I don't know. My hope is just maybe at the end of the day, if you start normalizing the presence of women as being associated with whiskey, there's probably a ton of really talented, brilliant people out there, women, men, it doesn't matter, that want to get into whiskey that perhaps thought like, no, or they questioned themselves or doubted themselves. Like, I don't belong there. That doesn't seem like something that I should be doing. Hopefully it encourages them to just do what they want to do anyways, because it doesn't really matter. It honestly doesn't. That you find yourself in situations. I mean, it gets different in every market. There's definitely a difference geographically on how they receive you as a female standing there talking about whiskey. But I don't know. At the end of the day, I have a job to do that I get paid to do, and I have to get it done. And so I don't know. I don't want to like give like any like specific instances because I hate like throwing all the negative, you know what I mean? The energy on all the negative stuff. But
yeah, no. And I think you make a great point that it is, I've kind of been in this world about the same amount of time, 5 or 6 years. And I think it is a lot more common, both for all quote unquote minorities, whether it's being a person of color or being a woman. Yeah, you see these people. Not, I'm sure on the professional side, I've been to distilleries and have met all different sorts of people. But then similarly as a customer, like, yeah, there is that I think there had long been that perception that whiskey in general was this kind of old white man thing. But it's for both consumers and bartenders and people who are making it. It is much more diverse than people assume. I think it's those preconceptions that also kind of play a role in that. That's all. Almost, it's sometimes it's your point. It's a weird question to ask someone. Like, yeah, it's like, how do you feel to be? I am me doing my job, but you also understand that it sometimes is different or unique to people. So.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because I think there's this idea that now all of a sudden all these women are making whiskey. They've been there, they've been doing it. No, just nobody looked. I think the idea of who is to drink what and what kind of drink is a man's drink, what kind of drink is whatever, is all really more so controlled by how we're marketing and advertising the stuff than who's actually making it. You don't see half those people anyways, most of the time. So it's interesting that it took the shift in just overall job pool of like corporate America, to be honest with you, to have more minorities in general rise into positions that are making these decisions that are opening up these ideas of like, why don't we represent more than just, I hate saying it, but like white guys, like it's just a thing. So like, yeah, if you, I don't know, it's interesting. It's really interesting to think through. I think it comes from a lot of different directions, but regardless, here we are making whiskey at the end of the day.
Like, and you've been there doing it for 7 years. So tell me, what's been your biggest win, or what's been a win where like that thing, again, you say, oh, collaboratively, like you said earlier, like that we did this, Old Forester did this, and something that that you felt really proud of being a part of.
Yeah. I think, God, there's a lot of them, right? There was a big moment for me a year ago when I finally had my name on the label of something that I drove to create. That was a big moment. I wasn't the one that like raised a hand and said, wait, why isn't my name on it? I didn't say things to me. It's like ink on paper, on glue, on glass, like whatever. But my boss, who was a huge ally, and he was like, no, credit where credit is due. Like, put her name on the bottle. Like, this was her baby. That's a big thing. I mean, but stuff like that is like, okay, cool. What's next? What impact did that really have? I think being in the role that I'm in, where you're so integrated into the marketing team as well, and you have a voice, and luckily our team listens to everybody, and you're able to say like, hey, why aren't we using this instead of that? Why aren't we using this supplier instead of that supplier? Why aren't we making choices to have more sustainable things out there instead of just showering the world in plastic cups that are branded Old Forester? Why aren't we making smarter decisions? Why aren't we utilizing smaller businesses to come up with some of the merchandise that we use? You know, it's just things like that I think it takes somebody who hasn't been ingrained in, well, this is the company we always use and this is what we've always done. And, you know, this is the easiest, simplest way to go about it. It takes somebody, a black sheep, if you will, from the outside to go, but why? Why are you doing it that way? And have you considered doing it this way? So there have been a lot of changes that we made, especially in the beginning of me joining the brand, about some of those things and about the use of things like, I feel like I'm going to like go down a rabbit hole here, but things like, here we go. Like the use of scantily clad promo models that are standing there talking about our whiskey, and you're not properly training them on facts. So you're doing nothing. Like you're going to hire a woman to put as the face of a brand and be like, look, women in whiskey, got it. Yeah. But then you're going to not train these other people so that you're setting them up not for success in those moments. And people are just associating, oh, this attractive female doesn't know what she's talking about. And then hammering that into their minds that that's normal. That's not okay. Yeah. It's just, I don't know. The world has shifted a lot since I joined this brand. It's not because of me. It's just the world just has. We've gone through a lot. And I think we're doing a pretty decent job of staying on top of it. You know, no one hands out a manual of like how to get through it all, but we're trying our best to be aware of it all. And I don't know. So yeah, I think I've brought something to Old Forester that it didn't necessarily have before. And that's kind of like I'm going to say what I want to say. And I know like it's going to be awkward at first, but I feel like I have to say it. Like I don't have that conditioning in me of being like, well, no, we're just going to, let's just not rock the boat. Like, no, let's rock the boat. Let's put the whole boat over. Like, why are we doing this? There's something different about that I've brought to Old Forester, because I've just come from the gnarly wild, wild west of the service industry, you know, where you're like, well, why not? It's different. I don't know. I probably made no sense there whatsoever.
That made total sense. And commercially, obviously, in a job where, you know, part of your work life is drinking and partying or being in that space of being kind of at, well, what is work-life balance for you? What do you do to disconnect, where obviously most people who have that 9-to-5 office job are disconnecting by going to a bar that may or may not be the last thing you want to do. Right? So like, what do you do what's that unplug like?
It's interesting because our headquarters is here in Louisville. So no matter where you go, you always see somebody from work. Always. I found, and I got to be careful about this. It's funny you brought this up because I was telling someone this the other day. I found little nooks and crannies in town that, are more beer focused, that like we don't carry beer. So I know like I'm not that I don't love these folks. I love seeing people, but sometimes you just don't want to talk about work. Right. Yeah. And so like if I hide at like a brewery, then like I can hide by myself. But the problem is there's only so many breweries. And so you go to the same ones and then they know you and then you can't close off from that. So then I just go hide in the woods. I go hiking a lot for this reason, because I just I need the distance. I need the space. I need the isolation in order to shut it down. I don't drink recreationally, if you will, because I'm aware that I am exposed to a higher amount of alcohol than the average bear just because of my job. And I do a lot to balance that out. Sleep is the most important thing. Sleep and water, hands down, the most important thing in the entire world. But also I take a lot of supplements to help support my liver because I know I'm running it ragged a little bit. But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I don't enjoy whiskey the same way I used to, just because once you go through like defect training and there's so many brands out there and there's so many good brands out there, but like you find that there's brands that you thought were something. And then after you realize what certain notes actually mean in the production process, then you're like, okay, I can't go back. I can't do it again. Like you can't unsee things. Right. So you end up, leaning into things like beer, tequila. Tequila is always fun. So yeah.
Okay, cool. And so let's ask some fun questions. Hopefully that was, a bit of fun. Like what, when you're not, let's say you said not, let's say you're having a glass of tequila, what city, and it's not going to be Louisville, because obviously, you want to take a break. What is that favorite drinking city of yours where you want to say, okay, you want to get away, you want to have a good drink? What's a city that you love to have a tequila?
I gotta go with like, where do I end up most of the time? I spend a lot of time in Colorado because I go out there to hike. Okay. And so now I have this like friend base out there. It's weird. It's like my home away from home now. I love it out there, but yeah, I can't, like, if I really am trying to go like shut off, I go into like where there's nobody. Like I spend a lot of time in Maine as well, like northern up all the way towards like Nova Scotia. I don't run into anyone I know up there. It's great. Like, but it takes a lot of energy to be on, if you will. And when you do tastings and trainings and public facing things, and then you're constantly like hosting people at the distillery or doing something, or just all the things all at once, that on top of being like a single mom and not having family in town or a support system, like everything is just like every now and then you need to just like hide, right? You just need to hide. There you
go. So it's not even a city. It's a mountain range.
Yeah.
Got it. Much. Final question. If you could have, let me start over. Final question. It's a classic question. If you could have a drink with anyone dead or alive, who would it be and why?
So I've gone through different responses to this over the years, right? And it's just as I evolve as a person, I think that like how I would value that moment evolves as a person. But honestly, okay, and I don't know. I'm going to sit here and say like, this might sound strange, but like maybe it doesn't. I don't know. From time to time, I do go and visit George Garvin Brown's grave. He's buried here in Louisville. And I go out there and I sit. I do it sometimes on my lunch. Sometimes I just do it at random if I've got time to go. But I sit there and I just think in my mind, like, George, am I screwing this all up? Like, is this what you had in mind? Am I doing it wrong? Am I doing it right? Like, give me something here. Like, what the heck are we supposed to be doing with this? So I'm going to say him, George Garvin Brown, because I want to know, like, where were you at? Like, what started it all and what was the most important piece? Have we been like fluffing up what we think is the most important piece, but that wasn't the goal, like just give me something. Like, I wish I could have a conversation with that man. I really do. Because I don't think when he started, he knew that he was planting the seeds for a multi-billion-dollar global company that was going to like withstand this much time, So it's fascinating. Like, what goes into the mindset of somebody who starts something probably not knowing that it was going to become that. So it would be him for sure.
Okay, awesome. Well, I was talking to somebody randomly from Brown-Forman this weekend. I happened to be at a Jack Daniels event, and they called you a rock star. So I think you're doing a good job at that. So thank you so much, Jackie. I really appreciate you taking the time out to do this. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. The pleasure is all mine. Thank you very, very much.